Farmers, trust is everything. At Genesis Fertilizers, we're not just proposing to build a facility, we're building a future designed for you. With real progress already underway, we're closer to providing Western Canadian farmers with a reliable, locally produced fertilizer supply. Now is the time to take control of your farm's future. Learn more at genesisfertilizers.com/credibility.
Good day and welcome to Wheat Pete's Word here on Real Agriculture for Wednesday, December the 18th. On this episode of the Word, hey, this is the last episode for 2024 until the new year. We've got some safety stuff, we've got some cool stuff, and I want to talk about, what about the Back to Nature movement? Let's go! So before I begin, a huge shout out, happy birthday to my great friend Al McCollum, just a tremendous agronomist in Elgin County. If you know Al, say, hey Al, happy birthday and welcome to your 6th decade, because we're all getting older. It's just the way it works. And I want you to remind you, because Christmas is coming, if you celebrate Christmas and you are looking, you're just saying, what do I get for that person that is so hard to buy for? Oh my gosh, there is so many amazing meetings out there that just give such good information. Buy them a ticket to the Grey Bruce Farmers Week, to the Midwest Ag Conference, to the Ontario Ag Conference. Just send them out to your local soil and crop meeting. That will be one of the best presents ever. And by the way, a shout out, as of today, the 18th of December, my good friend Nature Nut Nick is the feature speaker at Grey County Soil and Crop. Way to grow, Nick. And I wish I could be there to hear all the wisdom that you had to give to that particular audience. All right, I want to move on. I want to talk, yes, 2 weeks off. So this will be the last episode for 2024, and this will be the first time that I've ever taken 2 weeks off in a row. Just happens. Christmas is on a Wednesday. New Year's is on a Wednesday. It's the Word on Wednesday. Yep, Pete is taking 2 weeks off. Meanwhile, Brent saying, hey, Pete, I wish every day was Wednesday because I just love listening to the Word. And so I want to stop and just say, wow. Thank you so much to everyone who listens to the Word. It would be of zero value and zero fun to continue to do this without people listening, without having anyone to say, hey, that's awesome, Pete, or hey, that message is pretty long, Pete, or hey, you made a mistake, Pete. But you are an incredible audience. You give super feedback, so much positive feedback. And by the way, I've never had anybody tell me the messages were too long. You tolerate my really long messages. You accept my mistakes. You let me say next week, I got that one wrong. And I just want to say, in this holiday season, man, thank you so much for listening, for the feedback, for the questions, for making Wheat Pete's Word the incredible fun that it is for me every week that I do it. I also want to mention that, yes, it is the holiday season, and as much as it is an amazing time to get together with friends and family and recharge, relax, recharge, just it is that opportunity, and please, please, please take it. I also want you to remember that for some people, unbelievable stressful time. So I heard of a suicide in the neighborhood just last week, and I know that there are other people dealing with illnesses that they just found out about. There's so much stress. The markets are not very good. The politics is just in a shambles. People are stressed. So during the holiday season, reach out, go call someone, email someone, text them, but better if you can call, or drop in and see someone that you haven't seen in a long time. Build a community and just say, hey, are you okay? Because it always astounds me how important those little messages are. So please do that. And by the way, just know that as much as there's stress out there, there is also unbelievable joy. We were fortunate enough to go to the Aeolian Hall in London on Friday night and see Natalie McMaster, Danelle Leahy, and their kids. And the talent that we have in Canada is just sends shivers down my spine. But what was so amazing was that Natalie and Danelle are full of energy. They are two of the best fiddlers on the face of the earth. But they have 7 kids who are all right there with them, involved, incredibly talented musicians. But as I watched them, what was most important was that you could just tell how much fun they were having up on stage, entertaining, performing, and that's what it is all about. So by the way, that is also Wheat Pete when he's doing the word. You might not be able to tell, but man, I just absolutely have a blast. So here's a quote for you from Winston Churchill. The pessimist sees difficulty in every opportunity. The optimist sees opportunity in every difficulty. So I want you to be an optimist. When you see difficulty, just look for the opportunity. And by the way, I'll continue to focus on this. Man, when you get up in the morning, just say good morning to the sun. Say good morning to your spouse. Just if you can get up and say good morning, it will make your life better. I just hope you can do that. All right, I want to move on. I do want to talk about safety. So Rob reaching out to me with a really good point, because when we talk about safety here on the Word, lots of times we are talking about making a left turn and how do you make sure the people behind you see that you're turning left, and lots of examples of that throughout the year, and it's really important. But Rob makes an excellent point, and he said, Peter, remember to tell your listeners that when you turn left, that if someone is passing you, they have the right of way. So it is incredibly important that you, as the farm person turning left, make sure the way is clear, that you aren't turning when someone is passing you. And Rob is right. The person passing has the right of way unless you are already across the highway making that left turn. In Rob's case, he tries to wait until everybody behind him has gone around him, and then he can make that left turn safely. That doesn't always work. It depends on the situation, but just absolutely, Rob, make sure that that left turn, the way is clear, because if someone is passing you, they do have the right of way. On another note, Jen sending me an email just saying, oh, Peter, I just feel, I don't know, it just feels bad, and yet I feel like it's right. So Jen has an elevator, and they sell corn, clearly. A client called him up and said, I'm out of corn. Can you bring me a gravity wagon load of corn? And Jen said, man, it's 20 kilometers away. The roads are snow covered. The sanders are out. The snow is blowing. To pull a gravity wagon 20 kilometers behind a tractor, even though we have lights, we have no brakes on the gravity wagon, and it feels like that is unsafe. And so she called the grower back and said, you're going to have to call the truck. We have the corn, we'll load the truck, but the truck needs to take it because that is the safe way to get it there. And Jen felt really bad because the truck cost extra money. Stop, Jen. You did the right thing. You didn't say, we aren't going to feed your cattle. That animal welfare, we have to get the corn there. All you did was say, taking it with a gravity wagon is unsafe in these weather conditions, and you were 100% correct in that. We have an alternative method, which, yes, it costs a few more dollars, but it gets the corn to the grower so the cattle can get fed, and everybody is safe, and everybody can then enjoy Christmas with their families, even the people that were traveling the road that are non-agriculture. So 100%. It's one of those cases, Jen, and I say this lots, think twice, act once. That's what you did, and that's what we need to focus on 100%. All right, I'm going to move off safety and talk about some cool stuff. So we talk lots about cover crops. Well, here's the state of Delaware is now looking at, can we use cover crop species or the proper termination timing so that the cover crop actually helps control slugs. And if you've run into slugs, man, we just don't have any good control for slugs. Can we figure out how to use a cover crop for slug management? And in Prince Edward Island, they've clearly learned how to use some cover crops. Buckwheat is one, to manage wireworm in their potatoes. So now I think we're starting to get the right mindset around cover crops and its cover crop function. And by the way, just as a, we'll give that 1 minute plug. The Southwest Ag Conference, we are having Rob Mills and Laura Van Erd talk about cover crop functionality. You need something in your soil, what cover crop can deliver that for you? And yes, it's too late to register for SWAC in person, but the Ontario Ag Conference, you get them all virtual. So it's just one of those cool things. In Minnesota, they had tremendous rainfall this spring. Sound familiar to the growers in that Glencoe area down through Delaware, London? Man, it was just rain after rain after rain. In Minnesota, they had put on 160 pounds of nitrogen pre-plant. They got 7.5 inches of rain in May. They got 12.5 inches of rain in June. And their corn looked horrible. It had drown-out spots. It had ponded spots. It was yellow. And they thought, well, hey, this is an opportunity. Let's see if adding nitrogen with so much water up front can give us more yield. So they added 40 pounds more, and they added 80 pounds more, and the corn was at V13, so a couple of leaves away from tassel. Where they did nothing, they got 210 bushels per acre. Where they added 40 pounds of nitrogen, they got 220, so a 10 bushel per acre yield increase. Where they added 80, they got 224. So economically, the 40-pound additional nitrogen paid, but not by a massive amount. And I think we have to get better at this from that standpoint. Greg Stewart did a bunch of this back, I think, in 2015 around Milverton, where they had 9 inches of rain in June, something like that. And I believe that 50 pounds of nitrogen there brought maybe 20 bushels per acre, something like that. But if you're going to add additional nitrogen, you do it because you've been flooded out. And what always surprises me is that the yield gain is less than you would expect. Even as tough as that corn crop looks, the yield gain is less than what you would expect. In South Carolina, they are now double cropping soybeans after corn. And you just go, man, the weather is getting warmer, because otherwise you couldn't do that. They never used to be able to do that. But get this. What they've really run into in looking at that and trying to make that work is that both soybeans and corn are susceptible to the southern root knot nematode, and it is taking them out. So they really have to look at resistant varieties on managing that southern root knot nematode. And you would not think of that, but sometimes when we get areas in the field and we don't know what's going wrong, I often wonder if there isn't a parasitic nematode out there, and that's just one of those interesting things. Had a great session Monday night with the agronomists and talking about pulse crops, and I did not know. Aphanomyces in peas is just a tremendously tough disease in some of the pulse crops, but in peas in particular. In Aphanomyces, you say crop rotation. Crop rotation always helps because, man, we lower the disease inoculum. In the pea crop, believe it or not, they said you needed at least a 10-year crop rotation to reduce the Aphanomyces population, and they weren't even sure that was enough. You kind of go, oh my gosh, so basically, rotation doesn't work when it comes to some of these diseases, and Aphanomyces would likely be one of them. Hey, back to current crop conditions. Adam tweeting out a picture of his weather forecast, going to -13 one night, going to -18 the next night, and then warming up again. And Adam is saying, okay, Pete, we got no snow, the soil's saturated, what's that going to do to my wheat crop? it was kind of fun following the Twitter thread because lots of people just say, Adam, you worry too much. But at the end of the day, some interesting new research out of Eric Lyons, University of Guelph, and they looked at the LT50 of different wheat varieties here in the province of Ontario, winter wheat varieties. And so LT50 means lethal temperature where 50% of the plants, where half of the plants die. And that number for the most susceptible varieties here in the province was -12. The best were -16. And don't forget that the growing point is 3/4 of an inch to an inch in the ground. The inch is always easier to say, but realistically it's 3/4 of an inch in the ground. So it has to be cold enough, long enough to drive that temperature below at least -12 down into the ground, 3/4 of an inch. It almost never happens that we kill wheat in Ontario from low temperatures. It happened in 1948. That was the last time that I'm aware of, and I wouldn't know that, but my dad told me. So there you go. Mark, meanwhile, in response to Adam's tweet saying, hey, maybe it's time to frost seed my oats. He had a picture of the drill out ready to go. It's maybe a bit early, Mark, because the challenge is if you frost seed your oats now, it warms up enough between Christmas and New Year's that those oats germinate and start to grow. And then we get cold temperatures. It can sometimes take you out. So not saying don't do it. It would be fun to try, but there are some impacts from that standpoint. All right. To finish up the final episode of 2024, I want to talk about a great study that Andrew McGuire did, and it really was around this whole concept of back to nature. And, you know, everybody wants to get back to nature in agriculture because nature is better than what we do in agriculture. And the problem is that in that whole discussion, we focus on what was lost when we left nature and went to conventional agriculture rather than what was gained. And the whole problem from that perspective is we say, well, gosh, look at that forest soil or that grassland soil that's never been touched, and it's double the organic matter of what we have in my farmed soil. And it's got better crumb structure. I walk in there, I pick up a handful of that dirt, and it just has this wonderful smell. Well, yeah, 100% it does. And by the way, Andrew went through literature. Of course, Andrew's a scientist, and that's what he does at Washington State University. In the literature, farmed soil will have anywhere from 38 to 67%. So basically 1/3 to 2/3 as much organic matter as untouched soil. And this is global. It was research out of Germany. It was research out of Chile. It was research, I forget, another somewhere else further afield. So it doesn't matter whether it's the UK, Canada, the US, Chile, Germany, wherever. This is true. We're somewhere between 1/3 and 2/3, and it depends on where we started and how intensively it's farmed. And we can't get back to that original level. And the reason that we can't is that in nature, the carbon flow is all into the soil. We harvest virtually nothing. All of our perennial plants, all of our trees are not designed for maximum carbon removal. And when I say carbon in this context, it's the grain, it's the hay, it's the forage. And so our annual plants, we selected them because they don't put maximum carbon back into the soil. They put maximum carbon into the grain so that we can harvest it, and so that grain can go into our stomachs so that we can feed people. And yes, we make ethanol out of it, we make car fuel out of it now, we make many different products. But that change from basically the carbon flow is back into the soil, and he talked as well about perennial grains, things like kernza. The problem with kernza, you look at the root system on kernza, oh my gosh, it's 5 feet deep, it's massive. a wheat plant, because Kernza is basically a perennial wheat. You compare that to an annual wheat root system, and you're going like, okay, like what's the matter with my annual wheat system? But the difference is that the Kernza is putting almost all of its photosynthate into the root system. We don't eat that root system. It does wonderful things for the soil. So the soil really is incredibly awesome, but we get 20 or 30 bushels of Kernza from that perennial crop because all of the carbohydrate is going into the root system. And so we really, as we go through this thought process, everyone listening that is in agriculture should be saying, okay, back to nature, back to the old days. Man, that's romantic and it has such a lure. But the reality is that every one of us should just say, wait a minute, we are doing an amazing job and we will never get back to nature. And as Andrew Maguire says, we need to test what is in nature and we need to take what is in nature that is useful to us here in conventional agriculture so that we can maximize our output and use as few acres as possible to make sure everyone has something to eat and that civilization can continue to move forward. So we take what is useful and we also take what is useful in terms of things that are unnatural. Here's a standout example. Rotation is considered an ecological practice, and we all know the benefits. I don't care if you're conventional, you're organic, you're whatever. We all know the benefits of rotation. Rotation doesn't exist in nature. In nature, you hit climax vegetation, and that's a static state, and there's nothing about rotation in that natural system. So, full toolbox farming. Use what is beneficial out of nature. Use what is beneficial that doesn't have harmful impacts on the environment. Use a full toolbox, and everyone listening should realize that you are doing an absolutely incredible job. And with that, I want to once again thank everyone for the last year, for the last many years of all of your support of Wheat Pete's Word. I hope that you can take the time this holiday season, regardless of your religion or wherever you stand on politics, just take the time. Relax, recharge, reconnect. Have an amazing holiday season. And with that, that's it. That's all. On behalf of the team here at Real Agriculture, this is Wheat Pete with the final word of 2024. Keep the messages, the feedback coming. You will start my 2025 off with a bang, and we will see you in January of 2025. Happy holidays.